Imagine a warrior whose name almost no one remembers, but whose deed echoes through the pages of the Bible. A man who, alone, faced 600 Philistines and emerged victorious. Who was he? What drove him to such a grand battle? Today we will explore the story of the unknown warrior of the Bible who, with unwavering faith, defeated an unimaginable army. Do you know the strength he carried? Stay until the end to discover how this man's courage and determination became a symbol of faith and overcoming adversity. In ancient times, the people of Israel lived under the constant threat of invasion and oppression from neighboring nations. Among these enemies, the Philistines stood out as some of the fiercest and cruelest. They invaded lands, pillaged villages, and brought terror to the hearts of the Israelites. It was a dark time where fear spread like the wind. The warriors of Israel were outnumbered, poorly equipped, and oppressed. Few dared to confront the growing threats. However, amidst this darkness, an unknown man rose up as a beacon of hope. His name was Shamgar. A simple man, a farmer whose name appears in only one verse of the Bible, but whose deed resonates to this day. In Judges 3 verse 31 we find this man, armed only with an ox goad, an agricultural tool, who defeated 600 Philistines. But who was Shamgar? How could someone so unknown, with such a common tool, achieve such an extraordinary feat? To understand this story, we need to dive into the subtext and grasp the greatness of this man's faith and determination. Shamgar was not a trained warrior. He had no shining sword or gleaming armor. He was just an ordinary man, living a simple life, tending to his cattle and protecting his land. His weapon: an ox goad, a long stick used to drive the oxen. He lacked the military power of great warriors, but he had something much more powerful: faith in God and the courage to act in His name. What would lead a man to face 600 warriors all alone? Shamgar knew that, from a human perspective, he stood no chance. But his confidence wasn't in his own strength or skills. It was in the God of Israel, the God who had performed miracles, delivered His people, and strengthened the weak. Shamgar decided he would not let fear control him. He raised his ox goad, looked his enemies in the eye, and charged into battle. With blow after blow, he struck down the Philistines one by one. It wasn't just Shamgar fighting, it was God acting through him. Imagine the scene: a lone man surrounded by fierce enemies, all armed to the teeth, while he wielded only an agricultural tool. But what Shamgar possessed was much more than a weapon. He had the strength of a man who fully trusts in God. What must have gone through the minds of the Philistines as they watched their warriors fall one by one at the hands of this farmer? Shamgar did not back down or hesitate, and with each blow, he reaffirmed his belief that God was with him in that battle. But what does this story mean for us today? Just like Shamgar, we face battles every day. Our enemies may not be armed warriors, but the challenges, difficulties, and trials of life can seem as daunting as an army of 600 men. Yet, Shamgar's story teaches us a powerful lesson. No matter how great the challenges, when we trust in God, He empowers us to overcome even the most impossible battles. Shamgar was not a king or a military commander, but he had something that many powerful leaders lacked: faith. And that faith was enough to change the course of history. Often, we underestimate the power of simple faith, thinking we need great resources or exceptional skills to succeed. But Shamgar shows us that, with God, even the simplest of tools can become a mighty weapon, and the most ordinary of men can become a hero. Shamgar's story may occupy only a single verse in the Bible, but its impact transcends centuries and continues to inspire generations. Though the account is brief, it carries a powerful and transformative message. Shamgar reminds us that, in God's eyes, it's not prestige, social standing, or impressive abilities that make the difference. God is not limited to those who possess power or extraordinary resources. He uses those who are willing, who have an open heart and the faith to trust fully in Him. Shamgar was an ordinary man without sophisticated weapons or military training, but what he had was even more valuable: an unwavering willingness to act in faith. This total commitment transformed him into a powerful instrument in God's hands. And this is a profound lesson for all of us. Many times we feel unqualified, as though we lack what it takes to make a difference, or that we are too small to impact the world around us. But Shamgar's story teaches us that we don't need titles or special tools to be used by God. When we place our trust in Him and make ourselves available for His purpose, God can do extraordinary things through us. Shamgar didn't wait until he was prepared in the eyes of men. He acted with what he had, trusting that God would supply what was lacking. And that is the essence of God's call for each of us. It doesn't matter if we are known or unknown, if we have many skills or few. What truly matters is our willingness to trust Him and act in His name. God is not looking for the strongest or the most qualified, but for those who are willing to be faithful, to dedicate their lives to his plan. He can use our simplicity to achieve great things just as he did with Shamgar. Therefore, the great message of Shamgar's story is this: when we make ourselves available to God, he can transform our limitations into opportunities, our weakness into strength, and our challenges into victories. All he seeks in us is a willing heart, true faith, and the courage to take the next step. The extraordinary happens not because of who we are, but because of who God is and what he can do through us when we allow his will to guide our actions. Just like Shamgar, a simple man who trusted in God and accomplished what seemed impossible, you too can be used by God to achieve extraordinary feats. Think about the challenges you face today. They may be situations that seem too big, problems that seem unsolvable, or battles that you believe you don't have the strength to win. But just like Shamgar, God does not look at the size of our problem or what we have in our hands. He looks at the size of our faith. Shamgar didn't have a sword, an army, or armor. He had a simple ox goad, a tool from the field. Yet he did not hesitate to face 600 Philistines because he knew that God's power was enough to empower him. What seems impossible to us is not impossible for God. When we trust in him, even the simplest tools can become powerful weapons, and our weaknesses can turn into strengths. So, I ask you, what giants are you facing today? What makes you feel small, weak, or lacking in resources? And what if, like Shamgar, you decided to trust God to face these challenges? Shamgar had no guarantees of victory in human terms, but he had the assurance that God was with him, and that was enough. Imagine what could happen in your life if you surrendered your fears, struggles, and doubts into God's hands and allowed him to fight for you. Shamgar's story teaches us that, with faith, we can win any battle, no matter how difficult or unlikely the circumstances may seem. This is the message we need to remember every day. No matter the size of the enemy, no matter how small or insignificant your tool may seem, with faith you can overcome. Shamgar was not a great general or a famous hero. He was a man like any other, but what set him apart was his willingness to trust in God and act in faith. And that same faith is available to you. Faith transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. The faith that empowers the simple to achieve the impossible. So, the next time you feel small in the face of a great challenge, when it seems your strength is insufficient or the obstacles are too great, remember Shamgar. Remember that a man with a simple tool, but with unwavering faith in God, defeated an entire army. Remember that your strength lies not in what you have or who you are, but in the God who fights for you. And know that you too can be that warrior. God is ready to empower you just as he empowered Shamgar. You just need to take the first step of faith. If this story touched you and inspired you, don't forget to like the video. Every like helps spread this powerful message of faith to more people who need to hear that with God by our side, there is no battle we cannot win. And don't stop there. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now to always receive more biblical stories that strengthen our faith, motivate us, and show us how God works in every detail of our lives. Share this video with someone you know who needs this message. Could be a friend, a family member, or someone going through a tough time. Send this video to remind them that with God, victory is always possible, even in the most challenging situations. Our faith can transform any scenario, and it's this truth we want to continue sharing here on the channel.